prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live after the Raiders lost 27-20 to the Kansas City Chiefs in Allegiant. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. I'm Ted Wynn. They were at the game. This was a game that was surprisingly competitive. The Raiders were 10-point underdogs at some point, but it seemed like the Chiefs were trying to give them away the game, but the Raiders just wouldn't take it.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were trying to give him. I don't know if they were trying to give him the game necessarily, but I mean, it was there for the taking, even if they didn't want to give it to him. But the Raiders definitely, I would say, squandered an opportunity in this one to really get what would have been a huge win for them, kind of similar to when they beat them on Christmas Day last year. I mean, all the way into the fourth quarter. I think it was more so a story of like, despite the Raiders continually shooting themselves in the foot, they just kept hanging around in the game. Like that was more so the way I would describe it, but ultimately they couldn't pull it out in the end.
I guess it was similar to the game last year where there's those two huge defensive plays that kind of turned the game around last year. And this year there was that one today we saw with the tip by John Jenkins and the Trayvon Merrick interception, which really kind of was a huge moment in the place. Even the Raider fans that were here, that were outnumbered by the Chiefs fans, got really loud, and you could definitely feel the energy. And there was the time to kind of seize, that you really want to try to win this game. But clearly, what happened next was they couldn't score. They had the 4 cracks at it. They got stuffed on 3 runs. Then Minshew was sacked. That was kind of the turning point and kind of the end of the game, really. But so yeah, there was some similarities. I think the Chiefs obviously have struggled all year offensively. They've missed a lot of receivers. Now, still, I mean, today they were better, but they still had moments where they weren't really the old Chiefs. They used to be. I think they got to trade for a receiver at some point. But the defense played well.
The defense traded for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, but maybe one more though. But yeah, so I think the defense played pretty well. I think they kept them in the game. I thought Gardner Minshew was fine. I mean, obviously the one turnover, but yeah, it was a close game. I mean, I think mentioned the points, but it was 10 points, and they were down 14, and they got the garbage time touchdown, so to cover the spread. But I think I don't know if it was really that close at the end, but whatever.
Well, let's get into game management. It's not the only reason the Raiders lost this game, but it's an ongoing issue with Antonio Pierce, and something that I think if you're thinking that Antonio Pierce is the long-term answer coach, you want him to get better at this. And this is just another game where there's been puzzling game management decisions. And the first one I want to talk about, the Raiders get the ball back before the first half ends with 1:50 remaining. First down, throw the ball to Jacoby Myers, 0 gain, clock's running. Second down, 2nd and 10, they run the ball for some reason for 2 yards. And if you're trying to run out the clock, maybe, but then you're in a long yardage situation. The Chiefs have 2 timeouts. They take one of their timeouts. You end up in a 3rd and 8, and the Chiefs blitz Gardner Minshew. He's looking right at his hot route again. For some reason, he doesn't throw it. He scrambles to the right. He throws it incomplete, and the clock stops. The Chiefs get the ball back with a minute, and they get to keep their timeout. And they get a field goal right before halftime to go up 17-10.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty terrible. I mean we had Antonio Pierce after the game. His quote was, we wanted to score, but more importantly, we wanted to keep the clock running, which is just an insane thought process to me. Like your priority there needs to be scoring first and foremost. And at that point, I mean the offense, they were playing well. It was sort of a weird first half. Like there weren't really that many possessions for either team, but the first drive was a touchdown, second drive was a field goal, and then there was that drive. So like it wasn't like the offense has been, they committed 2 turnovers and they were really stinking it up, and there was a reason to think that they weren't capable of moving the ball. Like they were moving the ball really well early in the game against the Chiefs. And then they just basically didn't try to score before halftime, and in effect gave the Chiefs a layup to go cushion their lead a little bit more. And so that one was really bad. I was pretty shocked by that.
Yeah, I think their intent was do not give the Chiefs the ball back. More so than we're going to try and score ourselves. Like, do not give the Chiefs the ball back. So they're really trying to kill the clock. And I do, like you mentioned, the hot read, he hits that pass that takes more time off the clock, and maybe they bust that second down run. But clearly, they should have had some better play calls. And that's been a kind of the issue, ongoing all year long. I think, like Tashan mentioned, there have been spurts. I mean, definitely the Baltimore game. I think that was I want to say it was the Browns game where they played. They had all those reverses and all the jet sweeps that they got against the Browns. I
Yeah.
think it was. And then today, they had some really wide open plays. And, obviously, Jacoby Myers back is a big deal. Kind of gets the rest of the depth chart down to where it should be. And Trey Tucker had a decent game today. So I think they, for some reason, I don't know if they got conservative or I really don't know what the conversation is between Luke Getsy and Antonio Pierce. Like, I know Antonio wants to run the ball, and they're both, I don't know if they're both stubborn about it, but at this point, clearly to me, forget running the ball. I mean, obviously that's ideally what you want to do, but when you're moving the ball like they were, and Garner's rolling out and he's finding guys, and he's in a rhythm and has some confidence. I mean, that's been an issue for him this year with the turnovers, but he was kind of rolling for a little bit today, and all kind of stopped. And I'm sure the Chiefs made some adjustments and took away Brock Bowers to some extent, but you still got to throw him the ball. I mean, he's that good a player even if he's covered. Like Devontae used to always say, he's not really covered. So I thought that was a big mistake, but. Yeah, I thought they got conservative. I thought they definitely tried to run the ball, and they clearly cannot run the ball very well this year.
Yeah, I think Minshew was mostly fine today, but some of the issues that keep popping up with him is his issues against the blitz, and those things showed up at the worst times possible. Like in the beginning of the game, he was doing a good job, quickly getting rid of the ball and not holding it. But then, like when they needed him to make a play, the old Gardner Minshew showed up. And an example is when they got the ball back at the goal line after the interception with the tip with John Jenkins. They run the ball 3 times in a row. That's bad play calling. You run the ball 3 times in a row. You get stuffed 3 times in a row. You put yourself at the 3-yard line, which pretty much is a must-pass situation. And then they pass the ball. And on that play, the 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 Chiefs decided to back off into a zone. They didn't blitz, and they didn't show blitz. It was just a 4-man defensive line. And the Raiders had kind of a man beater play called with the pick route, but since they dropped in the zone, it wasn't open. But Minshew had a clean pocket, and instead of maybe waiting on something, he decides to run straight into a sack, and he ran straight into a sack, and and then the Chiefs get the ball back. So to me, bad play calling and Minshew kind of just panicking and taking a sack. And I get it. He's pressured a lot, so he's kind of jittery, but it's just another example of bad quarterback play.
I'll have to watch the play again. I don't recall a clean pocket in that play. I mean, I think he was under duress
I
a
watched
lot.
it 3-4 times. He had a clean
All
pocket.
right. Well, I only watched it once.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll watch it again. But I think there are a lot of times against blitzes where he took some big hits and kind of delivered the ball pretty accurately, I thought, like 3 or 4 times. So, I mean, this O-line's not very good. I think that's part of the problem. And I think he bought some time when he could, but clearly he definitely had some frenzied moments, which are definitely been his downfall this year. But I thought it was, I mean, I thought it was actually pretty good today. I thought besides the fumble was a big play, but that's just kind of, I don't want to say fluky, but didn't throw a pick. I think it's the only second time this year and has not thrown a pick. So
Is that our standard now? Doesn't throw a pick.
Hey man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, like he was okay today, but like that, I mean, I'm not gonna just wait away to fumble. I mean, you're down 7 in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left, potentially to go tie the game up, and you fumble deep in your own territory, and they go extend their
Right.
lead to 2 touchdowns. Like that was a pretty significant moment in the game, and he can't hold on to the ball, whether it's fumbling or throwing interceptions. And but I think even before they got to that point, like we were analyzing that end of the first half situation. He was playing well at that point, and there's reason to believe that they could have went and potentially scored on that drive, a field goal to find a touchdown. And then when they get the ball at the 3-yard line, I mean, for one, like damn, y'all can't get 3 yards. Like that's pretty. Yeah, I guess Jack Jones, he had a pick six last year, but Trayvon Merrick didn't finish it off for him. But I just at that point, because they couldn't run the ball all game. I think Alexander Madison was averaging like 1.8 yards a carry going into that drive. Like why do you give him the ball 3 times in a row? Like he's not a good short yardage back. if you're gonna hand it off in that situation, like why wouldn't you put like a bigger bruiser in like Zamir White, or like I think on the third run they brought Max Crosby in as fullback. Like they were just doing weird shit, and it wasn't like they were running the ball well, and I know that's not necessarily an Antonio Pierce thing. Like that's Luke Getsy as the play caller, but he's still the head coach, so you can tell him to stop beating his head against the wall at a certain point if it's clear that something isn't working. And I think they just, for some reason, they just would not give up on the run, even though the pass was working way better. And in situations like that, it really costs. But I think, another situation where Antonio Pierce kind of dropped the ball, and this one was at the end of the game. While it was sort of a last ditch kind of situation. Like he burned all three of their timeouts like on the Chiefs' second to last drive. So when they scored, went on an 80-yard touchdown drive in response and had 2 minutes left, they couldn't stop the clock, and so they had to do an onside kick and couldn't get it, and that was pretty much the end of the game because they burned all their timeouts. And it's just like I don't really know what possessed him to do that. Like it was like 5 minutes left in the game, and he just ran through them, and maybe they lose at the end of the game anyway, but they kind of took away their chance to win based off that decision.
Like I said, ideally he's trying to stop the clock there and not give them a touchdown, which they wound up doing. But yeah, it was definitely. I mean, that's why the Chiefs were in that prevent defense, because they realized even if they already scored, they wouldn't get the ball back. So I think, yeah, I thought it was I won't say enjoyable game, but yeah, it was a quality NFL game. I think coming in, I was thinking maybe the Chiefs are going to kind of blow them out, but the Raiders definitely, despite their injuries, despite their problems on offense, they're still a pretty tough-minded team. Definitely, they kind of came in with a good edge about them today. I thought they kind of had some aggression, and clearly they were in this game at some point, and they thought they had a chance to win it. So, and it's just no moral victories. That's what Max was talking about afterwards, and I agree with that. But I think if you're looking at like Tony says, the culture of this team is set. I think today is a pretty good showing of what the culture is and how they definitely kind of take care of business, and even if they have injuries and the quarterback problems, they still are competitive against the best team in the league.
Yeah, and before we move on, my two criticisms I have of this coaching staff. One, like the blitz plan was not good enough. We know Spags loves to blitz, and there's just too many times where they just didn't have an answer against the blitz. For example, on Minshew's fumble, they motion out into an empty, which means no running back into the backfield. You have 5 blockers. And it looked like the Chiefs had an empty check. They saw empty, they were going to bring a 6 rusher to overload that side. And that's exactly what they did. They brought an extra rusher. And when that happens, you have to throw hot because you don't have an extra blocker. So throwing hot, they had Bowers running a short route, but Bowers ends up running right into someone. And then they had Amir Abdullah running a flat route, which was a good option, but Minshew didn't see it. And then they had Thayer Munford at wide receiver running
That's the guy.
a short screen, which could be a good option.
I'm sure he's wide open. I'm sure he's wide open. Who's covering there? Who's covering Thayer Munford? It's a great play.
Not the guy you want to throw to, on these critical plays.
Maybe Thayer's got hands. I have no idea. I think I'm dying to ask Luke about that one. I don't know what the hell what the goal was there, but definitely it doesn't look great if you're a Bird fan. And the play where Minshew fumbles, you got Thayer Munford out wide. What the fuck? What the fuck are we doing? But
but if he threw him the ball, he got the first. I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be saying anything.
I'm dying to ask Luke on Thursday what the hell that was, and that plus the whole Max Crosby fullback thing is really odd to me. But yeah, they're trying some different shit. So, hey man,
I think the idea is, all right, you get a 6 O-lineman in. The Chiefs are going to put their base defense on because they think you're going to run the ball. And then you split out an empty, and then they waste a corner covering Thayer Munford, and you have some better matchups on inside. That's a theory, I think. But obviously it didn't work out. And the last thing I want to get to is the Raiders spiked the ball twice on that last drive. They spiked the ball, and this is kind of inconsequential, but it kind of shows you like where this Raiders team is at. They spiked the ball with 2:44 left, and they spiked the ball with 2:15 left. Like Homer Smith, who wrote the book on games management, says you should never spike the ball unless you absolutely have to, because you're wasting a down. You're still using time. You could use that time to run a play, like just run anything. You could run a goal line. You could run like a back shoulder fade and have it fall incomplete if you have to. But they had so much time, and it just shows that this team isn't prepared. Like, you should have a mechanism in your offense that allows you to just run something at that point and not just waste that down. It did end up didn't mattering, but it just kind of shows you like the incompetence of this team right now.
Homer Smith,
It's
man,
fired up with them.
don't go against
Yeah,
Homer
whoever
Smith,
Homer Smith
man.
is.
Don't go
But I
against what
mean,
he
it
says.
was like on a serious. I do think this was like probably Antonio Pierce. I can't think of maybe off the top of my head. I thought look back to last season, but this was probably his worst game management game as head coach to this point. I mean, between the end of the first half thing, the after interception that series, wasting 3 timeouts for inexplicable reasons, like it was pretty bad. And I think again, like we said at the top of the podcast, like that's not the only reason that they lost to the Chiefs, but I think it was a pretty big one, and it cost them to, that was one of the reasons why they failed to capitalize on this opportunity.
Yeah,
It's
rough.
it's an issue for sure. Definitely, it's something that when we look back at this year and you kind of grade Antonio Pierce, definitely that's going to be a big part of his grade. And like you said, you want to see progress, and you want to see. I don't know if he's going to address how it definitely works, who's telling who what in the headphones, and what the chain of command is, and who. But it definitely is. It's definitely an issue. And you're right. Today was not good. Today definitely that halftime thing was exactly what you don't want to do is give the Chiefs 3 points at the end of a half because obviously points are valuable.
Yeah. I mean, when the Raiders do get competitive, that's the plan, right? One day to be a
Win. I like it.
competitive team.
Not if you should win. I
Win.
like it.
Yeah,
Like
win.
is this guaranteed?
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
All right,
We've
let's
been
make
waiting
it.
for
I
20
like it.
years for that
They're
shit,
going to
man.
be a competitive team one day.
I
You
like it. I
cannot
like
make
it.
these decisions when you're
I
fighting
like
for
it.
a playoff spot or you're in the playoffs. Like, you just can't make these decisions, and it's just this team is not good enough for you to like lose the game on game management issues. It's just infuriating to me, but it is what it is. Let's give props to the Raiders defense because again, they were very good and gave this team a chance to win the game. But the offense couldn't capitalize. Fans want us to be more positive. And one positive was Tyree Wilson had a sack, and he played well. Had a few pressures in this game against the Chiefs. So there's that, and yeah, again, the Raiders' defense is not why they're losing these games.
It might have been Jack
Yeah, I
Jones'
mean,
best game. I thought another positive. I thought he played pretty well. He's kind of been a guy that we're
yeah,
counting on at the beginning of the year, and he hasn't really done much until now.
yeah. I think guys are making plays all 3 levels. I mean, Robert Spillane, he got hurt early, but came back in and had 12 tackles. I thought Trayvon Merrick had a really good game, not just the interception, he was also making plays in the run game. Jacorian Bennett, along with Jack Jones, played pretty well. Nate Hobbs made a pretty big play, but he kind of punched the ball out from Xavier Worthy on one of those Chiefs red zone possessions that made him settle for a field goal. So really couldn't ask for too much more from the defense. I mean, they did give up, a couple of long drives, but the offense really didn't do him any favors. Like I said, they squandered that Merrick interception and then put them in a bad situation again after Minshew's fumble at the end of the game. So I mean, 14 of those points, the Chiefs scored really on the offense. So, uh, you know, doesn't make them feel any better, like Max Crosby was saying after the game, but at least the defense was competitive in this one.
Yeah, and I respect effort, man. It's hard to keep playing when these things are happening, but defensively, I just feel like they play with a lot of effort and they're going hard. And
I think offense is going hard too. I think the offense is not lollygagging. I think I mean the line's not great, but I think they're trying. I think we saw today Myers and again I don't know what happened with Bauer. Bowers looked so good the first 2 drives, had 10 points, and then it was. I'm curious to watch the film, I guess, talk to people and kind of see what the Chiefs did, but he was having his way early on, and the Chiefs are not very good this season. I think they're one of the worst among covering tight ends. So it was kind of a weird glitch there, but he's got to be involved. He's clearly, with Devontae gone now, he's clearly the number one guy, and he needs more than 3 touches through 3.5 quarters.
yeah, well, we talked about it on Friday's podcast. Spags is he's one of the best at taking away your best threat. Like there's some teams with maybe 2 or 3 mechanisms to take away your best player. He has, 6, 7, 8, 8 of it. And if you look back in the games, like the number one threat of an offense just doesn't do very well against a Spags defense. Not saying that's excuse not to even target Brock Bowers for I don't know what 2.5 quarters, but it was kind of expected that Bowers. Well, I kind of expected Bowers to have a pretty poor game. But all right, let's get into questions.
Well, no, let's talk about I think we're getting the play calling a little bit with Luke
Okay.
Getsy. Um, I guess it's pretty bad right now. I mean, this game, we just hit on not throwing to Bowers for basically 3 quarters was puzzling. The insistence on handing the ball off to Alexander Madison in the game where he averaged 1 yard a carry was pretty crazy. Um, and it's just weirdly conservative. There's so many like second and long runs from this team. Like it's almost like they're you're not even really giving yourself a chance to move the ball, and it just didn't really make sense in this one, particularly when the pass game was working early. Like I know it ended up not working out, toward the end there, but I didn't understand what the plan was and why they were playing that way. And if he was asked after the game, would he consider making a play caller change? It doesn't sound like that's in the cards. And we've talked about before, like they don't. I mean, what would they do if they did take away his play calling duties? Like Scott Turner, I guess, pass game coordinator, he's a former offensive coordinator, but I don't really know how good those Washington Commanders offenses were, from 2020 to 2022. So who's to say that he would be any better than Luke Getsy in this role? But even if it's not him losing his duties, like something has to change because it was pretty bad in this one.
Just stop running the ball. That's all. That's my change.
But do you think the insistence on running the ball is all on Getsy, or do you think maybe
I think
Antonio Pierce has something to do with it?
Yeah, I think we don't really know. Ask me a question. I'm not sure we're going to answer because Pierce has talked about how he wants to have this culture where you run the ball and you're physical on defense, and that's kind of what he wants. And so I'm sure when they talk about it and like, hey man, we really stink at running the ball. Well, we got to get better. Well, we really stink, but we got to get better. So it's going to be effort and execution. We got to like have the alignment and where it stinks. I think it's definitely they're not giving up. And I mean, at some point they're going to have a breakthrough, maybe, but. Like today, I mean, I think you can see that teams are not really worried about the Raiders running the ball. And I think, I mean, again, Zamir White's kind of had a bad year. He was hurt, and now he's back. But I do think it's weird how a guy who ran for 145 yards against a team, 9 months ago, gets 2 carries. And he had 2 carries for -1 yards. But I mean, he had a great success against this very same Chiefs team pretty recently with a lot of the same personnel. So I thought it was weird he didn't get more of a shot today.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Like especially once Madison was playing as poorly as he was, like if you're gonna keep running the ball, at least hand it off to somebody different at that point. And I'm sure it's blocking was a factor as well, but
Yeah.
you got to be able to make some guys miss, run some guys over. And I think Zamir has a little bit more explosiveness in that way. I know hasn't been a season he expected or anybody expected for him due to injury and then just poor performance, but. I would have given him a more of a look in this one outside of 2 carries.
The old line's been banged up. I know Parm was out today. And they also lost Andre James at one point. I think he had an ankle injury. He was walking around
Mhm.
pretty gingerly in the locker room. So, so that's also an issue, just the health of the lower line. And they're struggling already. It took Colton Miller a while to get kind of back into form. He's playing better, but today had a couple of penalties. And, they had some bad timing with the penalties today. I think 4 or 5 false starts that kind of killed him. So, the O line is definitely part of the issue, not just on the running backs or on Minshew or on Luke Getsy. Like that's what talking to Madison today. He's like, people talk about the play calling, but I mean, it's really all of us. I mean, no one's doing great. No one's like, oh, I'm doing great, and especially you guys stink. They all have issues.
Yeah. And I mean, again, to me, the biggest issue was just the blitz plan. Like you're playing a Spags defense, you have to have a blitz plan, and either Gardner Minshew was not executing it, he wasn't checking into the right plays, or he wasn't throwing hot or looking in the right directions to throw hot, or he wasn't getting into the right protections, whatever it was, the blitz plan wasn't there. And to me, that's just very bad thing, especially when you're playing a defense as aggressive as the Chiefs. But that's all we have for you guys today. We'll be back on Friday when we preview the next game. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube. and comment and rate wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we will see you next week.
I read some of these comments. One guy says, "What the fuck? Hello." I guess he wanted you to call him Jordan. You must like, "Miss, sorry, Jordan."
No, he was talking about Ted was saying that they didn't have blowout losses. He said Steelers,
Ah,
Broncos, Panthers. He was like, what the fuck, Ted?
what the fuck, Ted?
Didn't I ask him?
I can read. Didn't read that question, Ted. You skipped that one. What the fuck, Ted?
Hey,
Jordan
Neil
says, "What
chooses
the
these
fuck,
questions,
Ted?"
Right? Neil chooses these questions, not me.
Hey, Neil, I want that question next time. What the fuck, Ted? It's a great question. Oh my goodness, I appreciate that, Neil. How you doing, man? Neil's the Raider fan in the building. How you doing? How you holding up?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Shout out to DJ Turner. Shout out to DJ Turner for his first receiving
Shout out
touchdown.
to DJ. Oh, that's beautiful, man. Shout out DJ Turner, man. Let's keep it positive. What else can we shout out? Who else?
Listen, I can bring
I think
positivity all day.
Well, I need one more. Give me one more, Neil. One more shout out.
Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers. Come on.
Yeah, man. Exactly. Came back big. I like it. There you go. We're getting Neil's positivity on this podcast a little more.
Every week. I'll bring it every week.
Every week. Oh, see?
There we go.
That's what I'm talking about, Raider fans. Come on. Get through this together. It's beautiful. Oh, well. At the Bengals. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Thanks
All right,
for
guys.
Peace.
adios.